esse poema, intitulado em inglês A Caissa Game of Chess, Caissa, um jogo de xadrez, uma partida de xadrez. Espero brevemente traduzi-lo, uma tradução literal, também é impossível traduzi-lo poeticamente para o português, mas se insere num conjunto de pesquisas sobre xadrez e arte, xadrez, poesia, xadrez e terapia. Obrigado.
Caïssa, or The Game of Chess, a poem by Sir William Jones. Of armies on the checkered field arrayed, and guiltless war in pleasing form displayed, when two bold kings contend with vain alarms, in ivory this and that in ebon arms, sing, sportive maids that haunt the sacred hill of Pindus and the famed Pyrean rill. Thou, joy of all below and all above, mild Venus, queen of laughter, queen of love, leave thy bright island, where on many a rose and many a pink thy blooming train repose. Assist me, goddess, since a lovely pair command my song, like thee divinely fair, near yon cool stream, whose living waters play, and rise translucent in the solar ray, beneath the covert of a fragrant bower, where spring's nymphs reclined in calm retreat, and envying blossoms crowded round their seat. Here Delia was enthroned, and by her side the sweet Sirena, both in beauty's pride. Thus shine two roses, fresh with early bloom, that from their native stalk dispense perfume, their leaves unfolding to the dawning day, gems of the glowing mead and eyes of May. A band of youths and damsels sat around, their flowing locks with braided myrtle bound. Agathis in the graceful dance admired, and a gentle Thyrsis by the muse inspired, with Sylvia, fairest of the mirthful train, and Daphnis, doomed to love yet love in vain. Now, whilst a purer blush o'erspreads her cheeks, with soothing accents thus Sirena speaks. The meads and lawns are tinged with beamy light, and wakeful larks begin their vocal flight, whilst on each bank the dewdrops sweetly smile. What sports, my Delia, shall the hours beguile? What heavenly notes, prolonged with various art, charm the fond ear, and warm the rapturous heart? At distance shall we view the sylvan chase, or catch with silken lines the finny race? Then Delia thus: or rather, since we meet by chance assembled in this cool retreat, in artful contest let our warlike train move well directed o'er the field preside. No prize we need, our ardour to inflame, we fight with pleasure if we fight for fame. The nymph consents. The maids and youths prepare to view the combat, and the sport to share. But Daphnis most approved the bold design, whom love instructed and the tuneful nine. He rose, and on the cedar table placed a polished board, with differing colours graced. Squares 8 times 8 in equal order lie, these bright as snow, those dark with sable dye, like the broad targets by the tortoise borne, or like the hide by spotted panthers worn. Then from a chest with harmless heroes stored, o'er the smooth plain 2 well-wrought hosts he poured. The champions burned their rivals to assail, twice 8 in black, twice 8 in milk-white mail, in shape and station different as in name, their motions various, not their power the same. Say, Muse, for Jove has naught from thee concealed, who formed the legions on the level field? High in the midst the reverend kings appear, and all the rest their pearly sceptres rear. One solemn step, majestically slow, they gravely move, and shun the dangerous foe. if ere they call, the watchful subjects spring, and die with rapture if they save their king. On him the glory of the day depends. He, once imprisoned, all the conflict ends. The queens exulting near their consort stand. Each bears a deadly falchion in her hand. Now here, now there, they bound with furious pride, and thin the trembling ranks from side to side. Swift as Camilla flying o'er the main, or lightly skimming o'er the dewy plain. Fierce as they seem, some bold plebeian spear may pierce their shield, or stop their full career. The valiant guards, their minds on havoc bent, fill the next squares, and watch the royal tent. Though weak their spears, though dwarfish be their height, compact they move, the bulwark of the fight. To right and left the martial wings display their shining arms, and stand in close array. Behold, 4 archers eager to advance, send the light reed and rush with sidelong glance. Through angles ever they assault the foes, true to the colour which at first they chose. Then 4 bold knights, for courage famed and speed, each knight exalted on a prancing steed, their arching course no vulgar limit knows. Transverse they leap, and aim insidious blows. Nor friends nor foes their rapid force restrain. By on quick bound 2 changing squares they gain, from varying hues renew the fierce attack, and rush from black to white, from white to black. 4 solemn elephants the sides defend. Beneath the load of ponderous towers they bend, in one unaltered line they tempt the fight. Now crush the left, and now o'erwhelm the right. Bright in the front the dauntless soldiers raise their polished spears. Their steely helmets blaze. Prepared they stand the daring foe to strike, direct their progress, but their wounds oblique. Now swell them battled troops with hostile rage, and clang their shields impatient to engage. When Daphnis thus, "A varied plain behold, where fairy kings their mimic tents unfold, as Oberon and Mab his wayward queen lead forth their armies on the daisied green." No mortal hand the wondrous sport contrived, by gods invents and from gods derived. From them the British nymphs received the game, and play each morn beneath the crystal tame. Here they tell the tale which they to Colin sung, as idling o'er the lucid wave he hung. A lovely dryad ranged the Thracian wild, her air enchanting and her aspect mild. To chase the bounding hart was all her joy. A verse from Hymen and the Cyprian boy, o'er hills and valleys was her beauty famed, and fair Caïssa was the damsel named. Mars saw the maid, with deep surprise he gazed, admired her shape, and every gesture praised. His golden bow the child of Venus bent, and through his breast a piercing arrow sent. The reed was hope, the feather's keen desire, the point her eyes, the barb's ethereal fear. Soon to the nymph he poured his tender strain, the haughty dryad scorned his amorous pain. He told his woes where'er the maid he found, and still he pressed, yet still Caïssa frowned. But e'en her frowns, what might smiles have done? Fired all his soul and all his senses won. He left his car, by raging tigers drawn, and lonely wandered o'er the dusky lawn. Then lay desponding near a murmuring stream, and fair Caïssa was his plaintive theme. A naiad heard him from her mossy bed, and through the crystal raised her placid head, then mildly spake, "O thou whom love inspires, thy tears will nourish, not allay thy fires. The smiling blossoms drink the pearly dew, and a ripening fruit the feathered race pursue. The scaly shoals devour the silken weeds. Love on our sides and on our sorrow feeds. Then weep no more. But, ere thou canst obtain balm to thy wounds and solace to thy pain, with gentle art thy martial look beguile, be mild, and teach thy rugged brow to smile. Canst thou no play, no soothing game devise, to make thee lovely in the damsel's eyes? So may thy prayers assuage the scornful dame, and e'en Caïssa own a mutual frame. Kind nymph, said Mars, thy counsel I approve. Art, only art, her ruthless breast can make. But when, or how, thy dark discourse explain, so may thy stream ne'er swell with gushing grain, so may thy waves in one pure current flow, and flowers eternal on thy border blow. To whom the maid replied with smiling mien, Above the palace of the Paphian queen, Love's brother dwells, a boy of graceful port, by gods named Euphron, and by mortals sport. Seek him, to faithful ears unfold thy grief, and hope ere morn return a sweet relief. His temple hangs below the azure skies. Seest thou yon argent cloud? 'Tis there it lies. This said, she sunk beneath the liquid plain, and sought the mansion of her blue-haired train. Meantime, the god, elate with heartfelt joy, had reached the temple of the sportful boy. He told Caïssa's charms, his kindled fire, the naiad's counsel and his warm desire. Be swift, he added, give my passion aid, a god requests. He spake, and sport obeyed. He framed a tablet of celestial mould, inlaid with squares of silver and of gold. Then of two metals formed the warlike band. He taught the rules that guide the pensive game, and called it Caissa from the Dryad's name, whence Albion's sons, who most its praise confess, approved the play and named it thoughtful chess. The god delighted, thanked indulgent sport, then grasped the board and left his airy court. With radiant feet he pierced the clouds, nor stayed till in the woods he saw the beauteous maid. Tired with the chase, the damsel set reclined, her girdle loose, her bosom unconfined, and stood before her on the flowery lawn. Then showed his tablet. Pleased the nymph surveyed the lifeless troops in glittering ranks displayed. She asked the wily Sylvan to explain the various motions of the splendid train. With eager heart she caught the winning lore, and thought e'en Mars less hateful than before. What spell, she said, deceived my careless mind? The god was fair, and I was most unkind. She spoke, and saw the changing fawn assume a milder aspect, and a fairer bloom. His wreathing horns that from his temples grew flowed down in curls of bright celestial hue. The dappled hairs that veiled his loveless face blazed into beams and showed a heavenly grace. The shaggy hide that mantled o'er his breast was softened to a smooth transparent vest, that through its folds his vigorous bosom showed, and nervous limbs where youthful ardour glowed. Had Venus viewed him in those blooming charms, not Vulcan's net had forced her from his arms. With goat-like feet no more he mocked the ground, but braided flowers his silken sandals bound. The Dryad blushed, and as he pressed her smiled, whilst all his cares one tender glance beguiled. He ends, "To arms!" the maids and striplings cry. "To arms!" the groves and sounding vales reply. Sirena led to war the swarthy crew, and Delia those that bore the lilies hue. Who first, O Muse, began the bold attack? The white refulgent or the mournful black? Fair Delia first, as favouring lots ordain, moves her pale legions toward the sable train. From thought to thought her lively fancy flies, whilst o'er the board she darts her sparkling eyes. At length the warrior moves with haughty strides, who from the plain the snowy king divides. With equal haste his swarthy rival bounds. His quiver rattles and his buckler sounds. Ah, hapless youths, with fatal warmth you burn. Laws ever fixed forbid you to return. Then from the wing a short-lived spearman flies, unsafely bold, and see, he dies, he dies. The dark-browed hero with one vengeful blow of life and place deprives his ivory foe. Now rush both armies o'er the burnished field, hurl the swift dart and rend the bursting shield. Here furious knights on fiery coursers prance, but see, the white-robed Amazon beholds where the dark host its opening van unfolds. Soon as her eye discerns the hostile maid, by ebon shield and ebon helm betrayed, 7 squares she passed with majestic mien, and stands triumphant o'er the falling queen. Perplexed and sorrowing at his consort's fate, the monarch burned with rage, despair, and hate. Swift from his zone the venging blade he drew, and mad with ire the proud virago slew. Meanwhile, sweet smiling Delia's wary king retired from fight behind the circling wing. Long time the war in equal balance hung, till unforeseen an ivory courser sprung, and wildly prancing in an evil hour, attacked at once the monarch and the tower. Sirena blushed, for as the rules required, her injured sovereign to his tent retired, whilst her lost castle leaves his threatening height, and adds new glory to the exulting night. At this, pale fear oppressed the drooping maid, and on her cheek the rose began to fade. A crystal tear, that stood prepared to fall, she wiped in silence and concealed from all. From all but Daphnis, he remarked her pain, and saw the weakness of her ebon train, then gently spoke, "Let me your loss supply, and either nobly win or nobly die. Me oft has fortune crowned with fair success, and led to triumph in the fields of chess." He said. The willing nymph her place resigned, and sat at distance on the bank reclined. Thus when Minerva called her chief to arms, and Troy's high turret shook with dire alarms, the Cyprian goddess wounded left the plain, and Mars engaged a mightier force in vain. Straight Daphnis leads his squadron to the field. To Delia's arms 'tis e'en a joy to yield. Each guileful snare and subtle art he tries, but finds his heart less powerful than her eyes. Wisdom and strength superior charms obey, and beauty wins the long-fought day. By this a hoary chief on slaughter bent approached the gloomy king's unguarded tent, where late his consort spread dismay around. Now her dark corse lies bleeding on the ground. Hail, happy youth! Thy glories not unsung shall live eternal on the poet's tongue. For thou shalt soon receive a splendid change, and o'er the plain with nobler fury range. The swarthy leaders saw the storm impend, and strove in vain their sovereign to defend. The invader waved his silver lance in air, and flew like lightning to the fatal square. His limbs dilated in a moment, grew to stately height, and widened to the view. More fierce his look, more lion-like his mien, sublime he moved and seemed a warrior queen. As when the sage on some unfolding plant has caught a wandering fly or frugal ant, his hand the microscopic frame applies, and lo! a bright-haired monster meets his eyes. He sees new plumes in slender cases rolled, here stained with azure, there bedropped with gold. Thus on the altered chief both armies gaze, and both the kings are fixed with deep amaze. The sword, which armed the snow-white maid before, he now assumes and hurls the spear no more. He springs indignant on the dark-robed band, and knights and archers feel his deadly hand. Now flies the monarch of the sable shield, his legions vanquished o'er the lonely field. So when the morn by rosy coursers drawn, with pearls and rubies sows the verdant lawn, whilst each pale star from heaven's blue vault retires, still Venus gleams, and last of all expires. He hears, where'er he moves, the dreadful sound. Check the deep vales, and check the woods rebound. No place remains. He sees the certain fate, and yields his throne to ruin, and checkmate. A brighter blush o'erspreads the damsel's cheeks, and mildly thus the conquered stripling speaks. A double triumph, Delia, hast thou won, by Mars protected, and by Venus' son. The first with conquest crowns thy matchless art, the second points those eyes at Daphne's heart. She smiled. The nymphs and amorous youths arise, and own that beauty gained the nobler prize. Low in their chest the mimic troops were laid, and peaceful slept the sable hero's shade.